On a unique evening in Paris in 1911, the former prefect Raymond is indulging in a cabaret performance by the showgirl Nicole, while Ferdinand is making his way home after an evening spent playing cards. He pauses in front of a statue to attend to his needs, but is startled when strange golden lights suddenly appear above him. This unusual phenomenon is caused by Professor Joseph, a renowned expert on ancient Egypt, who has developed telepathic techniques through extensive research. Utilizing these powers from his home, he manages to hatch a 136-million-year-old dinosaur egg at the museum, from which a pterosaur emerges. The two form a psychic connection, resulting in Joseph's movements being mirrored by the pterosaur for a few minutes. The pterosaur then flies out of the museum and soars above Paris, an occurrence that could have been witnessed by Inspector Albert if he had not fallen asleep. Raymond then takes Nicole with him in his vehicle, only for it to be attacked by the pterosaur, causing it to crash into the river. Ferdinand bears witness to the event, while Albert is awoken to handle the emergency. Meanwhile, André, a young scientist working at the Jardin des Plantes, is attempting to write another letter to his crush, the renowned writer and journalist Adele, whom he met at a book signing. Adele has been sent to Peru by her publisher, but she goes to Egypt instead. There, she hires a group of local men to assist her in finding the tomb of Ramesses the Great, unaware that one of them is informing on her. Once inside the tomb, they piece together an ancient parchment for Adele to decipher, leading them to the secret door. A black, oily goo emerges from the door, and when the men turn on Adele, she steps back, knowing the goo is a trap. One of the men ends up on fire, and the group admits they need Adele's guidance to find the room with the mummy and treasure. Adele is searching for the personal doctor of Ramesses and successfully opens the sarcophagus, but her inspection is interrupted by her adversary, Professor Deulevolt, who has come with soldiers thanks to information from his informant. Baffled, Deulevolt questions why Adele wants an old mummy, and she explains that her sister is ill and the ancient doctor is the only one who can help her. Deulevolt finds the idea absurd and steals Joseph's published research before having Adele taken back to the first room, to be executed as punishment for looting. When asked for her last wish, Adele requests a cigarette, and when Deulevolt approaches to share one, she steals the lighter and strikes him in the groin. She then pushes Deulevolt into the mummy wrapping machine and escapes through the goo tunnel, starting a fire with the lighter to prevent the soldiers from following her. Upon arriving at the mummy room, the protagonist enters the sarcophagus and propels it into the grave, breaking through the earth and landing safely in a river that carries her out. Afterwards, she rows back to the city while the men rescue Deulevolt, who vows revenge. In Paris, the police are questioning Ferdinand, but they don't believe his claim of seeing a dinosaur and the former prefect's affair with a showgirl. However, when more evidence emerges confirming the deaths of Nicole and Raymond, Albert dismisses Ferdinand and instructs his officers to keep the information confidential to prevent a scandal. Despite his efforts, the story leaks to the press and quickly becomes a citywide topic. The president hears about the situation and orders his cabinet to handle it to prevent panic among the population, opting to feign ignorance of the pterosaur flying past his window. The president demands results by the end of the week, but the task is passed down through the ranks until it reaches Albert, who is given only 24 hours to resolve it. André visits his friend Professor Menard at the museum and discovers the broken egg, deducing that it was hatched from the inside. Albert also arrives, but he lacks intuition and fails to make the connection. To get rid of him, Menard sends Albert to meet Joseph, an expert on the era of the pterosaur. Joseph has charmed the pterosaur with raw meat and is hiding it in his apartment. When Albert and the police arrive, the dinosaur remains hidden while Joseph shares his knowledge of pterosaurs. However, Albert's theft of Joseph's breakfast and eating of a hard egg angers the pterosaur, causing it to destroy the apartment before flying away, leading to Joseph's arrest. Adele returns to Paris with the mummy and takes it to her apartment, lying to her editor that the box contains a large pipe from Peru. She dismisses the nurse caring for her sister and disregards Andre's letters for bath time reading material. She then checks on her comatose sister Agathe and promises to heal her, but since she has lost the book, she must find Joseph to perform the ritual. Adele encounters Andre and receives another letter, but doesn't read them until after seeing a newspaper announcing Joseph's sentence to the guillotine. Andre informs her of Joseph's prison and Adele disguises herself as his lawyer to visit him. Joseph explains that he cannot escape using his telepathic technique as he is using all his power to control the pterosaur and prevent further killings, leaving Adele to find another way to release him. However, the real lawyer arrives and Adele is forced to try different costumes in an attempt to reach Joseph. Her attempts as a cook, nun, and nurse all fail, leading to her discovery. The effective disguise Adele adopts is that of a guard. However, by the time she arrives at Joseph's cell, it is too late as he has been relocated in preparation for his scheduled execution. Meanwhile, Albert greets Justin, a renowned big-game hunter who has been contracted to hunt the pterosaur. Albert intends to commence his endeavor by studying the creature's behavior, and they journey to the Eiffel Tower, only to be defecated upon by the dinosaur. Justin identifies the excrement as derived from mutton, which leads them to embark on a search throughout the city, including farms and the Jardin des Plantes, for locations with sheep. The following morning, Adele visits the president and recalls a fond memory of their past interview. She reminds the president of his opposition to the death penalty and implores him to pardon Joseph, but the president only responds that he will consider the request. Their conversation is disrupted by the descending pterosaur, causing Adele to tackle the president and shield him from harm, only for the dinosaur to abduct the president's dog instead. The guards interpret this as an attack on the president, resulting in Adele's expulsion. At the Jardin des Plantes, Albert and Justin are disguised as sheep and waiting for the pterosaur's arrival. Andre, who conducted independent research, locates the dinosaur by placing pieces of the eggshell and meat in a secluded area, attracting the pterosaur with the president's dog. Adele tries to convince the police of Joseph's ability to control the pterosaur, but she is disregarded and also expelled. Upon returning home and apologizing to her sister, Adele takes a bath and reads Andre's letters, discovering the answers she had been seeking. She rushes to thank Andre with a kiss and accompanies him to the dinosaur nest, where she befriends the pterosaur through singing and gifting her feather scarf. With the pterosaur's trust, Adele mounts the creature and tames it to rescue Joseph from the guillotine, resulting in the executioner's demise. As they fly back to the nest, Justin spots them and gives pursuit, while Albert remains asleep. Joseph reunites with Menard, but their reunion is short-lived as Justin shoots the pterosaur, injuring Joseph due to their psychic connection. Enraged, Menard confiscates Justin's weapon and pursues him for hindering science. Joseph's time is limited as his life is inextricably linked to the pterosaur's survival. Adele entrusts Andre with the task of keeping the pterosaur alive and takes Joseph to her apartment to perform the ritual to revive the mummy. Utilizing Adele's antique collection to create a summoning circle, Joseph uses the remnants of his telepathic powers to bring the mummy back to life, sacrificing himself and the pterosaur in the process. The ritual is successful, and the mummy, named Patmosis, awakens and expresses gratitude for his resurrection. However, he reveals that he is a doctor of physics and not medicine, unable to cure Agath. Adele informs Patmosis of Agath's situation and recounts their competitive relationship. Including a particularly aggressive tennis match, Adele strikes the ball with excessive force, resulting in her being hit and falling onto a hatpin, which pierces her head. Patmosis deeply regrets not being able to assist and expresses a desire to have met Joseph, whose formidable abilities were rumored to have the power to awaken the dead within a 2-kilometer radius. After recalling an advertisement in the newspaper regarding a mummy exhibition at the Louvre, Adele conceives an idea. She places Agath in a wheelchair and attires Patmosis in formal wear before departing the home, enabling Patmosis to approach Ferdinand and terrify him. The group arrives at the museum and gains entry after Patmosis uses his abilities to unlock the doors and render the guards unconscious. Inside the exhibition, they commence opening the sarcophagi in search of Ramesses' physician. Upon releasing the servant mummies, they also awaken Pharaoh Ramesses, who agrees to aid Agath as a token of gratitude for being revived. The pharaoh's personal physician extracts the hatpin and prepares a salve made from Ramesses' entrails to cover the wound. Ramesses then kisses Agath, not as a necessity but as a tradition. Afterwards, Ramesses takes his servants on a tour of the city while Agath regains consciousness. The sisters reunite, and Ramesses decides to construct a pyramid outside the Louvre, causing Ferdinand to faint once more and making headlines the following morning. The president contacts Albert to address this new threat, while André attempts to visit Adele, but instead encounters Agath. Realizing Adele will be absent for several weeks, André presents the flowers to Agath and they share a cup of tea together. Meanwhile, Adele sets sail for a well-deserved vacation, only to be pursued by Dulavolt's henchmen, whose fate is uncertain as they board the ill-fated Titanic. At the Jardin des Plantes, Menard continues his pursuit of Justin, only to be apprehended by Albert and his officers. Justin's respite is short-lived, as he is now the target of a pair of guerrillas.